Hi, Dennis Yusuf here from Inspired Growth Training. In this session, we are going to be watching a live video of myself actually presenting to a real owner. Okay, so it's how to conduct a really realistic presentation. And yes, it is yours truly doing that video. That actual presentation, I actually sat with an owner. Before we get started, the terminology, it is Australian. We are in Australia. We are covering 4 countries. So some of the wording may be a little bit difficult or not easy to understand, and I do apologise for that right now. The spelling is in British English, is the spelling that we use. Please check your legislation on anything that we do talk about. Okay, if you're feeling a little bit uneasy about it, you can contact us and ask a question. All of the questions you can be written down, and you can jump into our closed Facebook page and have a look at it, which we've got there. Please ensure that your name matches the name on the registration, because sometimes people have got a different name on Facebook and it doesn't match it. So just send us an email at office@inspiredgrowthtraining.com, and then we can verify that for you. Okay, we do have a members only video library that this recording and other videos and webinars that we have done do get put into, and the login details, they've been sent through to you. So how to conduct a really real listing presentation. Well, that there is an exact screenshot of me sitting in front of the real investor. Now, be really careful when you're listening to it and have a listen. He actually came to me thinking he didn't have a problem. So several times I had to bring it up and identify the issue. I had to keep on pushing the sore points of what he had. And it took to the end where he realized that there was, obviously there was an issue. There was a pain point. So you will win more business when you can work out what the pain point is. Always ask particular questions to find out what those sore points are for an owner before you get to a presentation, so you can work out what their issues are. So please, Wendy, thank you very much. If you could just play the video so that we can then go through and watch the video.
Hi Dennis, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you, John. I appreciate that you're coming into the office today. So can we just recap on the purpose of us meeting here today? So you rang me up yesterday because of issues that you're currently having with your agency?
Yeah, I'm not really having an issue. I'm very, very happy with my agent, except one small thing only, that is my property is vacant at the moment, and police sign out the front, and I've had a few phone calls from other agents. Everybody out there thinks that they can do it better, seeing that it's vacant. It's been vacant for probably about 3 weeks, but it has a broken lease arrangement.
Okay.
So therefore it's been a month before that we were aware that it was going to be available, so the police sign's been out there now for, call it 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
So consequently other agents are looking at that and saying it's been vacant for this period of time and they could all do better. Well, that just makes you start to think, well, I wonder if my agent is doing everything he could be. I'm very happy with him. I've been with him since I had for probably the last 7 years I've been with him, and very happy. So, but then I thought, well, I'll give you a call and see what else is out there and whether I am getting the best service I can get or whether there are alternatives.
Okay, sure. So obviously the issue is your property's vacant.
That's right.
So you've got a good property manager, but they're just not good at
this is the first
property.
time. Let's be, you know, it's been vacant. Never been vacant. It's been changed tenants probably, you know, 4 times in his period, and it's never been vacant. So let's start from saying that I'm very, very pleased with the way that he operates.
Yeah. Okay. But unfortunately, it's just costing you money while the property's sitting vacant at the moment.
It will do, because at the moment it's a break lease and therefore the tenant's still paying, but they've bought a house, and I can see this thing turning into sour grapes because he doesn't want to pay for a house, pay for my unit at the same time, naturally. And I don't want him to be either. I want him to be a thing where he's clear of it and I move on as well.
Sure.
So,
Excellent. Okay, so we'll be able to cover that shortly. So I wasn't one of the agencies that actually rang you and
No.
cold called you. So what was the reason why you actually called us?
Oh, I saw an article that on your website, and there's sort of a couple of things that sparked me to say, oh well, yes, I'll give you a go, because seemed to be the right sort of words on your webpage.
Okay, so the first thing that we need to overcome is to fill your property and get a tenant in there, so it's going to please you and possibly your wife as well.
Of course, but I mean, if you take a look at the relationship and so, then, you know, I look at, I've been with this agent for a long time, I've been very happy with him, so yes, I need a tenant,
Yep.
but I also want to know that go forward, that this isn't a one-day wonder, I've got your tenant and now we've done my job for me.
Sure, so if I was to take over the management of the property, because we're obviously sitting here today because you've got a problem. I understand you've had a good relationship with them, but there's an issue at the moment. I don't need to know who the agency is, but obviously there's an issue. So if I was to find that tenant, I would be obviously, you know, the preference to be able to take on the management from that point of view.
course.
And you're obviously okay with that.
That's right.
So I'd sent through some information for you to have a read of last night. So it does upset me to hear that your property is vacant for so long, because it's the most stressful time for an owner. You know, it puts stress on you. Each week your property's sitting vacant, it's 2% of your annual income you're losing. So we're actually filling properties 10 days on average faster
10
than
days.
every other agency in the area. So if your property is worth $500 a week, that's a $700 a year saving on average over an annual period. So, and the reason why we're filling properties quicker is because we have an online booking system where we're allowing tenants to actually have, you know, to book those times for the property that suits their needs. We're about meeting the needs of the tenant.
Does everybody have that? Does my agent have that now?
Look, I'm unsure if your agency's got it, but even if they have, they may not be utilising it to its full potential because your property's still sitting vacant. We have a specialised leasing agent, and their job is purely just to find tenants. They're not being bogged down with anything else in the property management sector. It's purely finding tenants. If they're not filling properties, they're going to lose their job. So it's a priority for us to fill.
But isn't
your
it better
property.
that I have, like, I feel my property manager is involved in the whole spectrum for my property.
Sure.
But you're saying that a specialist is a better way? I felt that one person with everything, knowing my property, get the tenant, look after the property and everything would have been a better arrangement.
Yeah, look, obviously, you know, it's nice to be able to deal in with that one person, but their specialty in leasing the property is obviously not working for them at the moment. So that's why we have, look, my job is to tell people why they should be using our agency and what things that we've got in place so properties aren't sitting vacant like yourself. And we've got somebody who's employed just to fill properties because that's where they are gifted. You know, for example, if I was to do routine inspection, John, I probably wouldn't be the best person because I don't have that attention to detail in, you know, keeping tenants accountable to how clean the property is with lawns, etc. My specialty is that advice about, you know, why use the company. We've got a specialist staff member who specialises in leasing properties. We have specialised people that are paperwork. You know, I'm terrible at paperwork. You don't want me to be the person in charge of the property, but you will have that one point of contact, the property manager. But when your property is vacant, we have the specialised staff there
So I only
looking
still
after
deal with
you.
one person. I don't deal with anybody else. I don't
No.
have other people ringing me or...
Not at all.
No.
Oh, look, if there's someone on holidays, and that's irrespective of
No,
which
yeah,
agency you're
understand.
using, there's always going to be somebody. If there's ever a problem, you know, you can come back to me. You know, because I told you we're going to do A, B, and C. So, you know, you've always got that contact back to myself or the principal's number.
That raises a point while we're there, is that one of the things is that, so I'm talking with you and we're building some sort of rapport as we go, perhaps. Then you flick me to Mr. Stranger,
Yep.
called property manager, who becomes a face in the distance or a phone call or an email or whatever. So
Okay.
we build a relationship here, but that's where it sort of ends? Or?
And it's true, it does. Our relationship will end once that we've gone through the authorisation forms and signed the documents and found you a tenant. I will then pass you on to the leasing agent, but we've got to pass a handover position. So Andrew, who was the person who I was telling you about on the phone last night, and I put in the email, his vacancy rate is 0 at the moment. So he's actually got no properties available to lease. So I would have a handover where I'll introduce you to Andrew and I'll introduce you to our leasing agent at the same time. So you can gain a rapport with them as well.
Well, that's fair enough, yep.
But if obviously Andrew's not performing, you can give me a call as well. But this is like, we need to get back to the issue of, you know, finding a tenant for your property. So what concerns have you got about renting your home?
Well, I mean, the number one thing is, I mean, the market's a bit slow at the moment, as I can see from looking at websites all over the place. It appears to be not moving like it had been. But how do I know if my asking price is competitive? How do I know if I lower that asking price, that then, so we agree to lower the asking price, for example, we get a tenant, then how do we ever get it back up? How does that process work in your business?
Well, your current property manager should be giving you this advice at the moment. So we've actually got 1% vacancy at the moment. So the reason why we've got a 1% vacancy is because of the online booking system, because of having a specialised leasing staff member filling these properties. So, you know, we are filling the properties 10 days quicker. We're not having the issues like other agencies are in the area. So your concern about having your property vacant for so long is overcome if you were to use our company. You know,
so in terms of 10 days faster, so 10 days faster than industry standard or something, I guess.
That's the local average.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so our vacancy rate is 1%. So we've got 1% of the properties that we're currently managing that are vacant at the moment. The average vacancy in the area is 3.5%.
So that, let's be devil's advocate, I could be saying, well, that's because you advise the owner to lower his price $5 below market value or whatever, and therefore you're at 1%.
Oh, that's a good point, but then I get paid less as well. My job is to get as much money into your pocket as we can. So obviously the higher rents that we're achieving for you, the higher income that we're getting as well. So we're in this boat together about, you know, quality tenant is the most important thing, but getting rent collected, even if we're getting $5 a week less, it's still better than what you're getting at the moment. So I don't know what your current rent is and what it's currently advertised at, and it could be overpriced. And that's something that I'd have to do.
We're going on a bit of a same plateau, but my question is, so that's the price I was getting before, so the tenants moved out, and now how do I know if that's the market price or not? How do I know, therefore, if I have to accept the lower price at the moment because the market has changed, how do I know that can be increased at some point in time in the future when the next lease expires? Or how is that all communicated to me?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is during routine inspections, John, so throughout the tenancy process, we actually do evaluations of the property at that time, and we give recommendations. So if you're getting $500 a week and we're doing a routine inspection, we'll have a market update throughout the process. So you're kept up to date. We are educating you throughout the whole process, even when your property's full. So at the time of a vacancy, when it comes available, you'll have a little bit of an understanding. You know, so if we, you know, yes, it happens. We could be getting $600 a week, and the market can drop because there's so many vacant properties around, and we'd be silly to try and get $600.
Yes, I understand that.
So we will advise you. We'll do what we call a comparable market analysis on your property, and what that does, it gives you examples of what's rented in the previous weeks and what's available right now. But as well as that, I explained about the Inspect Real Estate program that we are using. That actually emails me a report daily and lets me know how many people are applying for particular properties. So I can even give you an example of the properties that are vacant at the moment and have had no viewings. Meaning if your property is very similar to that one and you said, Dennis, I want $600, I can say, well, John, have a look at the stat here. This here property is also the same as yours, and look, in the last 24 hours we've had no viewings, in the last 7 days we've had no viewings. So that's about educating you. So again, we want to fill the property quick.
So do I get any feedback? Like you say, you have this information that you get about people interested in properties and so forth. As an owner, what sort of feedback do I get?
Music to my ears, John,
Oh.
because it's the most stressful time. And it's a really good question, because your property's vacant and you're probably feeling like you're not being told what's happening with your property at the moment. So during the process of the leasing, what we do is when the viewings are booked, we will advise you when there's a property that's booked. Because of Inspect Real Estate, what we can do is we can even ring you 2 or 3 days prior to the viewing that's arranged and advise you of how many people are going to come to the booking. At the presentation, at the viewing, at the open, should we say, you're going to receive an email at the presentation advising you how many people turned up and their opinions of the property, if they're going to apply or not, as well as feedback from the leasing agent. You'll also receive a phone call after that as well. So you are kept up to date at all times. We obviously then ring you with the approved applications that we've met our standard,
Yep.
and then you can go through with the leasing agent, and you can obviously pick the tenant of
So in
that
terms
suits
of
you.
my own peculiarities, other words, that firstly, when I bought the unit, I said to myself, I don't want to become attached to this, I want to be totally divorced from it, and that's why I started with an agent instead of me trying to run it, because you become emotionally attached, you never sell it, you become whatever, you become too involved. So how do I sort of have myself at, here I am saying on one hand that I want to be kept some information, but on the other hand I say I want to be arm's length.
Oh, of course.
So how do you understand me from a different owner, and how do you operate that?
Well, we're currently dealing with 700 owners, and that's a relationship between us and each individual owner that we've got to learn. So you've had your relationship with your current agency for a few years now, so
Yeah.
it's up to us to learn that relationship as well, because the relationship is between our agency and you, our agency, the property, and our agency and the tenant. So it may take, we might be sending you emails and giving you calls, and you might say, can you leave me alone a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh, yeah.
interested. And then we learn through that. So I'm not going to pretend we're masterful at it.
All right.
So it's obviously going to take a little bit of time. But if you say to me, Dennis, I don't want a phone call, I just want emails, or I just want text messages, then that's how we'll deal with it.
Well, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So look, ultimately, I'd like to be able to help you manage the property and find you a tenant, because that's the goal, about finding a tenant so we can get some income coming in for you.
Plus, as I said, I mean, the tenant was found, and now we go forward, so the months ahead. So I'm interested as well in the months ahead. So therefore, there's some maintenance issue, and how much of your involvement is there? How much of my involvement is there? What do you do when the hot water system doesn't work?
Sure. Okay, so what I'd like to do is actually go through the authorisation forms with you, which is where you're giving us permission to manage the property on your behalf, you're giving us permission to do the maintenance. By going through the agency agreement, I'll be able to explain in full detail at points how we're going to market the property and the maintenance of the property, and obviously emergency as well. So we have a pre-approved limit of $1,500 that you give us permission to do works on your behalf. So we'll give you a call if the tenant does indicate that there's any works to be done on it, and then you advise if you want that work done. You know, you can even tell us, John, you know, I've got my own plumber, my own electrician. We put that on the documentation,
Yep.
and we know who to call once you've given us that permission. Look,
And if I have nobody, you have the people.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very important that we use the right people, because we don't want to be ringing you every 3 or 4 weeks saying there's a leaking tap again, there's a leaking tap again.
Yeah.
We have the tenant screaming at us, we have you screaming at us, and that's just not how we do business.
Yep, that's fair.
We only want to be calling you when there's happy things.
Yes.
You know, but if you say, Dennis, don't call me if it's under $500, we won't call you, but we really do have to advise you that something has happened to the property.
Yep. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so would you like to go through the authorisation forms now? I can then go forward and start marketing it and ultimately finding you a tenant so we can get some income
Well, let's
coming in
discuss
for you.
first what's my cost going to be for all this. I mean,
Sure.
so
Yep.
we start off with there's no tenant. You find a tenant. What's that sort of a cost? gonna
Okay,
be?
so we take the first week's let for the property, and the management fee is 8.8%, including GST. At the moment, you're not being charged a fee at all. It doesn't matter what other agencies are charging you. If they're not collecting rent, you're not being charged a cent.
Yep.
So 8.8% of nothing is nothing at the moment. So I want to collect rent for you so we can, you know,
So
get some
8.8 is
income.
on the high side, I feel.
Yeah, and obviously with the information that I've given you, the advice on why we're leasing properties faster. So what management fee are you paying at the moment?
7.
7%. So 7% of, you're talking about $3 a week. Okay, so $3 a week times 52 weeks is less than $700 a week that I'm going to
Not a
save you
bad.
by filling the property a lot quicker. So there's one saving that I'll be able to provide for you. So hopefully that's just enough information to back up that we are worth more than 1%. At the moment, 7% is not filling your property, John.
I understand that, but I take your point. The small amount isn't an issue in life either. But I mean, I guess that my number one concern is that I'm not a person who moves. As I've said, I've had this one agent for a fair period of time. Happy with the person until this one small hiccup. So the question mark is that if I make a move, we're making a move for long term, and therefore it's about a long-term relationship, not just to find me a tenant. So that's what it's more about. In terms of maintenance and so forth, do you charge any commission on top of, like you have to get a hot water system, whatever, do you get any fees, charges on
No,
extra?
we don't. There's no fees in that, and that's what we'll do is we'll go through the agreement. I'll get into that in a lot more detail for you. Any works over $3,000, we do have a 10% charge. Okay, we don't want to be doing maintenance. I don't want you ringing me up saying, Dennis, can you do a renovation on the house? We're not builders. You employ our services to manage your property, fill your property faster with good quality tenants, and keep ensuring that the money is being collected on your behalf. We're not renovation specialists. So we don't charge any fees for the maintenance at all. That's all covered in the cost of the management fee. Are you currently being charged that at the moment, John?
No,
Okay.
they do it all for you.
Great, yeah, excellent. I mean, that's what you employ us to do.
Yes, yeah. Yep, all right, well, I guess we'll have a look at the agreement and see that there's anything different in that to what I would have expected. I mean, I read your email and I sort of didn't expect there was anything different to what my current agent had. So if you've got anything there that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go through the agency agreement with you, and that explains, the full processes of it. Obviously, the concern is just finding a tenant and getting it filled on behalf for you. And ultimately,
So how do you advertise it? Let's just start.
Yeah.
Just take me through what would you do
Okay, so
different to what you think our chap might already be doing?
Well, we advertise on 12 websites, one of them being our own as well, because we need to maximise, as many avenues as we can to finding and sourcing a tenant for you. And obviously, I'd like to use professional photography for the property for you. I understand that, that's going to slow the process down. So what I'm going to do for you is that's something that I'm willing to throw in if you're happy to go through with the agreement with us today. So next time it comes available, we'll have professional photography, and that'll help us speed the process up of filling the property. So normally we do the photography, we get it advertised on the internet, we have window display cards, we've also got a display screen at the front, and we've also got the hard copies of the rental list that come available, so the tenants that don't have the internet or the mobile phones. What we'll also do is we'll notify tenants that have been looking for properties in your area straight away. Once we've gone through these.
How do you have this list? How do you have a list of who's looking for a property or whatever?
Well, we're back again where I was explaining about Inspect Real Estate. We've got a tenancy database of tenants that are actively looking through our office at the moment. So for example, your property's in South Brisbane.
Yes.
So we go through the database of the tenants that we've got looking for properties in South Brisbane, and we notify them directly via email and text message that your property is also available too. So that's actually, I can do that before your property's even on the internet. This is one of the reasons why we are filling properties quicker.
No, that sounds proactive, yeah.
Very proactive. We don't want to sit back and wait for tenants to come to us, and that's why we have a specialised leasing member doing it. She's not worrying about hot water systems. She's not worrying about maintenance that needs to be done on the property, why tenants may not be paying their rents, etc. Her focus is filling the property for you.
Yeah, that's all pretty good. Yep, that's quite proactive, and yep, I'm probably interested in at least knowing a bit more about the whole process.
Sure. Okay. So would you like to go through the agency agreement now so we can start?
A bit rushed for time at this moment.
Okay.
So what about if I was to take that with me and I'll have a read of it? I've got your phone number.
Excellent. You take that through. What I've got your details as well, John. If I can just confirm your phone number and details of what I've got here. So I put your details down there. Is that all correct?
That's all correct. Thank
and that's
you.
the email that I sent through for you last night.
Yep, that's
so
all good.
what I'm going to do is you go home. You have a read of that with your wife as well, John.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a follow-up call. There's a lot of information to take, and I understand this is a big decision for you, but ultimately I'm here that I want to help you find a tenant.
Yep.
As you said, we are proactive. Obviously something caught your attention when you looked at our information online as well. I want to help find a tenant for you so we can take this stress away from you. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, well, thanks very much, and I'll take a look at this in detail, but it's certainly pretty positive, and I think we'll probably be talking again for sure. So,
excellent. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi John, thank you very much for joining us today. You've just experienced a listing presentation from Dennis Yusuf, the BDM coach. He went over the scenario, which is a true one, because at the moment you have a property which you're seeking a tenant for. During that listing presentation, what did you feel that Dennis did really well?
Well, I thought he overcame my objection of the percentage rate, the commission rate, you know, made me feel like as if, well, what's the point? I mean, we're either going to have a cup of coffee or less. So because that to me was going to be important, because I thought, well, I came here with the intention I'm not paying anybody any more than I'm currently paying. And yet he made that look like as if, well, that's a non-event anyway.
Yes, so he really broke down, because often with the interest rate, people see 7, 8 or 9% as a high number, so they think it's a really, because they relate it to interest rates. But Dennis broke it down to how much it was going to cost you per week, which was $3, right? So you then thought, well, hang on a sec, that was then not going to be a factor. So you would seriously pay the extra 1%? Is that what your feeling was?
The $3.
Yeah.
See, that is the amazing thing, is that it's the 1% feels like as if that's a hit, but $3 is a non-event. So yes, having broken it down to what is the reality, because yes, while you think about it in terms of dollars and cents, I mean, it's not something, the 1% becomes, I'm not going to pay somebody 1% more than some other person's getting.
Yes.
So yes, so that to me was important. The fact that he was able to, my reservation was, I thought, well, having one person that you contact with that does everything, that finds the tenant, I mean, because they get back in touch with you and they keep you informed and so forth.
Single point of contact.
Yes.
Yes.
But he's led me to believe that, yes, I'll still have a single point of contact, but I'll have a better expertise.
Yeah.
So, and that's to me was also important.
You've got someone dedicated to the bit that's hurting the most for you at the moment, that's finding a tenant.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he also then rounded that off by putting it all back together as one package, because initially I thought, oh, this will be a fragmented thing. My other concern was to say that, so I sit here with one person having an interview, we're getting on quite well and everything's rosy, and then it's like as if you're with an office and that person leaves and they say, here's your new property manager. So at that point in time, it's pretty cold, and that's where I thought this was heading as well, because I thought, I'll start off, I'm talking to this person and everything's going well with talking to Dennis, but how long is it going to be till I get flicked to whoever, and then you're just a number, a name and an email.
That's great. Very important when the business development officer meets the owner, it tends to do what we call a handover, okay? And how can that transition of that relationship he's built with you to be able to then hand it over to the property manager? And the best way to do it, if you were in his office, is for him to stand up and go get the property manager.
Exactly.
And come and meet who that property manager is.
I would have liked to have actually put a face to the person, because I suppose that's the way I am. You see, my number one thing is I don't want to be closely connected to this property.
Yes.
I want to be arm's length completely from it, but at the same time I want to have the face that I'm familiar with is looking after the property, and therefore though I know that person, I'm sleeping nightly thinking that person is doing their job, and if you need to get in touch with them, that will bounce back and forward as it should do.
That's right. A great question that I've always asked while meeting an investor straight off the bat is that, why did you buy this property? Okay, and the answer that I'm interested there is, are you an emotional attachment to that property, or are you a investor mode? Because there's a very different style of management that's required we can manage any sort of property, but when I understand if you're emotional, where you're very much investment orientated, but you still want to know what's going on, but it's critical that there's that arm length transaction. Yep. So what do you think that he needed to improve, or where do you think he got a little bit lost in when he was talking to you today?
No, overall I thought it was all covered. It covered all the angles and so forth. I think that I wasn't interested in as much detail perhaps as he would have prepared to go into. Like he would have prepared to go through the whole sign-up agreement and everything else. Well, I mean, I've had a unit for 15 years, so hence do I really want to know all that? I mean, I assume that a lot of that's legislative anyway, so therefore you're stuck with half the content. That's why I'm happy to go home and read it rather than a rhyme and verse thing sitting here. I'd rather read things my own time. That's my sort of person. Other people that probably want to have something explained in more detail. So that I think is more individual than not.
All right, so tips for him to improve?
I can't think of any really, because I think he covered what I wanted, and I think that, as I say, the number one thing, he shot my biggest objection to bits in no time at all. And I think that, I mean, prices, I guess if you take a look at an agent, then you have an income and you have an expense side of it. And the only thing that we really got into discussion about, he got rid of, very, very simply, didn't he?
That's right. And that's not staged either. That I got a big list. I can really start giving it to Dennis. One of my most enjoyable things to do. So, no, thank you very much for joining us today. That's fantastic.
Very good. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.